We've had
press
conferences, we've had the electorate that really matter for this, which isn't people out there in the country, it's the Conservative members of Parliament at the 1922 committee. I did see one Conservative member of Parliament,
Julian Sturdy,
breaking ranks, saying Boris should resign. But realistically, is that pretty much it?
I think it is. I mean, you know, there is no doubt, as you say, the Sue Gray report is damaging for the Prime Minister. It is damaging for those that worked at Number 10. I mean, brazen breaking of the rules, 4:30 a.m. finishes, wine over the red carpet, having goes at the cleaners and the custodians who wanted people to stop partying, altercations, broken swings. I mean, it is incredible.
People sitting on people's laps, all sorts of things.
You know, when you think about it, what went on, it's pretty abhorrent.
But we kind of knew that was coming,
but we knew that. We knew that. And the Prime Minister's defence, and he has got a defence, is pretty clear, which is essentially, like, lots of this happened when I wasn't there. In fact, much of it happened when he wasn't even in Downing Street, and that when he attended these events, he thought they were work events. Must be said, it was the conclusion of the Metropolitan Police as well. In terms of his Conservative backbenchers, I thought actually the most notable thing today was when the Prime Minister stood up to make that statement. I was in the press gallery, and most of them just walked out. And I think that's a sign of that there's not necessarily overwhelming support for the Prime Minister on this. In fact, quite the opposite, where MPs are sick to the back teeth of it. They're quite embarrassed, I think, by it. They're not prepared to front up and defend the Prime Minister on this particular issue. And they also just want to draw a line under it. And so in the end, that's, I think, what's going to save the Prime Minister, is that they just want to move on pretty much like everyone else, I think, to a large degree. Yes, there's people who are very angry about that out there. It has done damage. I think you're right. It will cost them votes at the next election. But fundamentally, there's a mood within the party. They do not want to start a new leadership race. There's no obvious successor.
No, and that's really the key to all of this, I think, isn't it? But there are other events coming up. There are by-elections coming up. We've got one, of course, in Devon coming up, one in Yorkshire coming up. I suspect he's going to stay as leader for some time to come now.
You know what, the strangest thing today is actually the most uncomfortable the Prime Minister was, and you're right, we saw a lot of him today, and he did fess up and he apologised and he put himself out. There's no doubt about that, and there's still questions that many feel are unanswered, but you know, he did take questions almost from everyone today. But bizarrely, or maybe unsurprisingly actually, the most uncomfortable he was today was at Prime Minister's question time. And it wasn't answering questions about Sue Gray, it was asking questions about the economy. It was asking questions about how does he solve this really, really difficult, sticky place that we find ourselves in with low economic growth and rising inflation. And it's undoubted tomorrow we're going to hear from the Chancellor. Almost certainly there's going to be a windfall tax. Yes, it's going to be tapered to companies to invest more. But that's a bit of a humiliation for the government too. Labour campaigning for months on that. They've been all over the place, ruling it out, ruling it in.
I knew they'd do it, Darren. When I heard the Prime Minister say he didn't like the idea, I knew exactly what he'd do.
But I think
once you've done it on this sector, why not other sectors that are doing well?
Well, and I think this, but also I think this is part of the wider narrative where the government are really struggling is because it's so big, but what are they going to do? Because ultimately, whatever they do tomorrow, and I think it is going to be pretty big, talking about £11 billion, but it's not going to be enough. And that's the problem. This is not potentially ever going to be enough, and it's going to roll on for months and months, maybe well into next year. And I think that's the big challenge for Boris Johnson now going forward. And that's the real concern, I think, for the Conservatives coming into the next election is, yes, this will do some damage, but it will be nothing potentially to the economic kind of ruinous state to a degree that Britain might find itself in as they go to the polls.
Stagflation. And 9:30 tomorrow morning we get immigration figures, which are likely to be an all-time record. So we'll talk to you again tomorrow, Darren.
Very strange, just very briefly, incredibly strange, isn't it? We're seeing massive immigration numbers, and it's really not part of the political narrative. And I suspect that might not stay the case for very long.
No, I agree.